Welcome to Another World, Team Impala's single-player hybrid action-adventure civilization builder game, based around RenderYard's 2013 animated video, Nora, is targeted to release on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S consoles, as well as PC with relatively modern hardware. The story of Another World closely follows our android protagonist, Nora X32 Alpha, nicknamed Alpha, and her journey to establish a society for her fellow Nora androids after being abandoned on a hostile alien planet. Early in her explorations, she'll find up and team up with her reptilian sidekick, Argite, as they brave the harsh wilderness to secure resources for the growing Nora civilization. As Alpha leads her people in building her new home, they start exhibiting distinctly human characteristics, and what traits they manifest revolves around the player's actions. The Nora's newfound sentience also means a new challenge for the society, understanding themselves and their place in life. Depending on the choices you make as a player, you will see the Noras come to terms with their problems, whether that is a worry of not being able to raise offspring to further their legacy, or an ever-looming cloud of existential dread about the fulfillity of their existence, to anything in between. As their leader, it becomes your job to alleviate their fears and worries by acquiring resources and building a functional settlement. But at the end of the day, what will your original human creators have to say? Another World's gameplay is split into two core loops of activity, exploring the world and building your settlement. When exploring the world, you'll be controlling Alpha from a third-person, over-the-shoulder perspective. While free roam is an option to be openly explored, the core experience will be following story-based missions to help grow your settlements by doing things like acquiring materials or searching for other missing Noras. We chose to use a third-person perspective since it allows the player to see more of their immediate surroundings, helping them to make well-informed choices. Your two main challenges when exploring the world will revolve around safely traversing harsh environments and dealing with problematic hostile AI-controlled creatures. The player has traditional health and stamina mechanics as well, named durability and battery. Taking damage will decrease your durability, and by using the battery, the player can sprint and perform helpful actions like rock climbing, swimming, and dodging. These can be replenished through repairs and recharges, such as at a repair clinic in your civilization or using a generator to replenish your batteries. In Another World, both traversal and combat serve as constant mini puzzles, and depending on the area or time of the game, these could be as simple as using a ladder to climb up a steep incline or as complicated as making a makeshift bridge to cross a raging river. Additional traversal tools include zip lines, makeshift shelters, paths, roads, climbing rope, and more. Instead of just a setting, we chose to add these puzzles to have the world offer challenges to the player. That way, the player feels more connected to the world. They act on their own part with logical limitations, but overcome those challenges with the creativity and problem-solving skills. To help the player decide their path, Alpha sidekick Argite can mark and point out potentially helpful items and places of interest, which would be presented by small beacons on the HUD. While we do value a sense of realism, we don't want to sacrifice fun through arbitrarily hard design choices. Combating hostiles takes the idea of the world itself being a puzzle and applies it to battle scenarios. You confront and fight a monstrous beast with your weapons. A wide variety of combat tools are available to the player, including melee weapons like spears and swords, and ranged weapons such as bows, handguns, and a variety of rifles. Or, do you find a way to sneak by? Maybe by combining certain items, you can lure them away from your destination. Similarly to most modern games, if you lose your health, you will die. These are simple ideas that have been in practice for a variety of games for years. But by focusing on them and making them a core staple of the player's toolkit, it makes a new, innovative experience while providing a familiar launching point for players. Along with exploration, civilization building takes up about half of Another World's gameplay. Using the materials the player has gathered, they can build structures from a top-down camera angle to create the Nora settlement exactly to their want. They can choose from a wide array of structures that benefit the settlement, such as housing, stores, farms, manufacturing plants, laboratories, and more. Making these structures reward the player by evolving story threads for the Noras and the ability to make new items, weapons, and equipment to better explore the world. For example, building the ranged weapons factory will allow the players and the other Noras to craft new and better guns, or by making a prosthetics or augment factory, they can enhance their own traits, such as speed, durability, or battery. Additionally, the player can explore the settlements in a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective and interact with the NPC Noras, and then return to the wilds once they are done. This way, there is a clearly defined loop between exploring and building, with each naturally leading into the other to advance both the story and player's overall power and progression. Speaking on Another World's progression, it's split into two tracks, the narrative and the toolbox. In terms of narrative progression, by building, exploring, and venturing out on story-based missions, the story will progress and evolve. While the beginning is simply about survival, the story begins shifting focus to the philosophical question of what it means to live. Characters will start breaking their robotic facade and slowly become more human, each with their own problems, fears, and hopes. When it comes to literal progression with the player power, building specific structures will offer the player new items, abilities, and equipment. In effect, it's a skill tree disguised and morphed into its own game mode. We chose to design progression this way to make it feel more natural to the player with a clear cause and effect. For example, after building a prosthetics enhancement factory, it will give the player access to body upgrades to help maintain immersion more than filling a node on a traditional skill tree would. When breaking down what mood another world is intended to put the player in, it's a feeling of being out of place. Given that the setting is on an alien world, we have extra creative freedom to help accomplish that with lighting, skyboxes, and terrain. Overall, the lighting is cool and soft, directed to project fewer shadows to help promote quiet, somber feeling, mirroring the feeling of dread Alpha is feeling. Additionally, the skybox is filled with an abundant amount of bright stars. Combined with certain areas with more open design, this helps sell the feeling of being alone in a vast wilderness. Sandstone functions as the underlying material that makes up a majority of the planet's structure, so it's presented in many locations and scenes. The color is a low intensity red, so it's muted by the lighting, but when approached, its real color is exposed more. Another world's overall Hud and UI style is simple and minimalistic. To ensure that the screen isn't overclogged and overstimulating to the player, only necessary information is shown at a time. This is split into two parts, one part for exploring and the other part for building. When exploring, the only information shown is Alpha's durability and battery bars. When holding a tool or weapon, a small rectangular display pops up near Alpha, indicating the item's name, durability, and ammo count/quality, if that matters to the item. When Argite scouts out items for the player, small upside-down triangles will float above the item. These disappear if the player leaves the area the item is in to prevent clogging up the screen. Enemies have small health bars above them, as well as their name and aggro type. Enemies that aggro on the player via sightline have an eye above their health bar, for example. Opening the equipment quick swap menu pauses the game and shows a circular wheel of items for the player to quickly swap between from their inventory. When building, the HUD retains the same design, motif, and logic. At the bottom of their screen, the resources available are listed. By hovering or clicking on structures, a rectangular window pops up with basic information on it. This indicates the name, purpose, and materials needed to operate and upgrade. When building, there's another window that can be opened to see the status of your civilizations, such as defensiveness and productivity. These HUD elements are made to purposely be simple and minimal to not overburden the player with excess information. Another world soundtrack is kept minimal yet dynamic. When exploring the world, music is light and relatively sparse to help immerse the player in their surroundings. Music is triggered by certain in-game flags, such as when a player is detected to be approaching an object or place of interest. This is done to add drama or specific emotion to a scenario. In areas that do have constant background music, it functions dynamically to help match the location of the player. This is accomplished by having the music split into multiple tracks all playing at once, by having certain tracks fade in and out to change the sound and emotion. For example, in a barren desert, the music is only a few sparse tracks. But when approaching an oasis or a more vegetated area, additional tracks such as the piano will pop up to make the music feel more full and alive. By utilizing dynamic music, we can make these set pieces feel more unique, immersive, and emotional. The music itself is mostly comprised of strings, piano, and light synths to fully sell that this is an unexplored, nature-filled sci-fi world. Once you have thoroughly built your settlement, explored the world, and have overcome the existential and philosophical terrors that plague the Noras, the player has entered the end of the game. A small landing ship with a squadron of human soldiers dressed in full sci-fi tactical gear comes from it. They step forward, weapons in hand, and the screen cuts to black. Then credits roll. The ending is left deliberately vague in regards to the Nora's fate. This is to encourage players to have their own discussion on the relationship between creator and creation. To summarize, Another World is a single-player game about exploring a hostile alien world and bringing together a community while tackling their fears, worries, and hopes. The game cycles between exploration and top-down civilization building, with each providing challenges to the player and opportunities to progress. Only by embracing Alpha's role as Nora's savior can players overcome the harsh reality of Another World.